The Zephyrian High Command stood in reverential silence before the Oracle, their quantum supercomputer that had never been wrong. For 3 millennia, it had guided their empire across 17 star systems, its crystalline matrices calculating probabilities with mathematical perfection. Today it hummed with particular intensity as it processed data about their newest adversary. "Analysis complete," the Oracle announced in its ethereal voice. "Human resistance probability, 0.01%. Recommended action, immediate surrender demand. Victory assured within 72 standard hours." Admiral Kexthar's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Humans had appeared seemingly from nowhere, their small fleet emerging from the void to challenge the Zephyrian blockade of the Kepler 442 system. Intelligence suggested they were a young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel, wielding primitive fusion drives and kinetic weapons. The Oracle's assessment was merely a formality. "Patch me through to the human flagship," Kexthar commanded. The view screen flickered, revealing the bridge of the human vessel. At its center stood a figure that made the Zephyrians pause, not from intimidation but from confusion. The human was laughing. Not the bitter laugh of desperation, but genuine mirth that seemed to bubble up from somewhere deep within. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiance," the human said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Sorry about that. Your ultimatum was just, wow. Surrender in 12 hours or face annihilation? Did your computer actually calculate our response?" Kexthar's mandibles clicked with irritation. "The Oracle is never wrong, human. Your defeat is mathematically certain. Your ships are outgunned 40-1. Your technology is inferior and yet here I am still laughing," Chen interrupted. "Tell me, Admiral, has your Oracle ever fought humans before?" The question was absurd. Of course it hadn't. This was first contact. But something in the human's tone made Kexthar's confidence waver. "Data parameters are irrelevant," he replied stiffly. "Physics is universal. You cannot overcome impossible odds through laughter." Chen's grin widened. "See, that's where you're wrong. Your computer is thinking like a Zephyrian, logical, predictable, rational. But humans?" She shrugged. "We're beautifully, catastrophically irrational." 12 hours later, the Oracle's certainty began to crack. The human fleet had scattered, not in retreat, but in patterns that defied tactical sense. Individual ships broke formation to engage superior forces, their crews broadcasting what the translation software identified as music and insults in equal measure. The Oracle frantically recalculated, each update showing decreasing Zephyrian victory margins. Captain Chen's ship, impossibly, had rammed straight through the center of the Zephyrian formation. Physics said it should have been vaporized. Instead, it emerged trailing plasma and debris, its captain's laughter echoing across communication channels as she coordinated an attack that no sane strategist would attempt. "Oracle," Kexthar demanded, "explain these anomalies." "Processing error. Human behavior patterns exceed predictive parameters. They are improvising." The word hung in the air like a foreign concept. Zephyrians didn't improvise. They calculated, planned, executed. The Oracle had modeled every known combat doctrine, every logical tactical response, but it had never encountered a species that threw logic out the airlock and relied on instinct, creativity, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. Chen's voice crackled through the comm. "Hey, Oracle, catch this!" Her ship, already damaged beyond any reasonable expectation of survival, suddenly accelerated directly toward the Zephyrian dreadnought. But instead of ramming it, she fired her entire missile complement at point-blank range, using her own ship's explosion as cover for a boarding party that materialized from nowhere, launched from pods that the Oracle had dismissed as debris. "Impossible," Kexthar breathed. "The boarding pods weren't even in your inventory." "Escape pods," Chen's voice came from his own bridge somehow. "We welded engines to them this morning. Figured you wouldn't shoot at something that looked like debris. Also, surprise, I'm behind you." The Oracle's voice became strained, almost panicked. "Error cascade detected. Human variables exceed computational matrix. Certainty degrading. Probability algorithms failing." What followed wasn't a battle, it was chaos incarnate. Humans used their damaged ships as improvised weapons, turned rescue operations into assault tactics, and somehow convinced several Zephyrian vessels to surrender by broadcasting what they called psychological warfare, though it sounded suspiciously like stand-up comedy. The Oracle's final message was barely coherent. Cannot compute. Illogical success rate. Humans do not follow. Mathematical principles. Error, error, error. In the aftermath, as Kexithar found himself in human custody, somehow having been captured during a routine diplomatic discussion that he distinctly remembered beginning as an interrogation of his prisoners, Captain Chen sat across from him, still grinning. "Your oracle wasn't wrong," she said, offering him something called coffee. "Mathematically, you should have won. But here's the thing about humans. We're not just a species that reached the stars. We're the species that looked at impossible odds and decided they were merely suggestions." Kexthar stared at the steaming cup. "But how do you function without certainty? Without predictable outcomes?" Chen's laugh was warm now, not mocking. "Admiral, certainty is overrated. We've built our entire civilization on the idea that tomorrow might be different, that the impossible is just another word for hasn't happened yet. Your oracle tried to calculate human behavior like we were machines. But we're not machines, we're dreamers with fusion drives and really poor impulse control." She gestured toward the viewport, where human and Zephyrian crews were already working together to repair both fleets. "Besides, where's the fun in knowing how everything ends? The best stories are the ones where nobody, not even the universe itself, knows what happens next." The Oracle, when it was finally rebooted 3 days later, came online with a single message: "Request permission to study human mathematics. Current computational models, insufficient." And somewhere in the depths of its quantum matrices, for the first time in 3 millennia, the Oracle began to learn how to laugh. Because sometimes, the most logical thing to do is embrace the illogical. And humans had been doing that since they first looked up at the stars and decided they belonged there too.